I'm the Big Game Hunter, and here we are with Career Coach Office Hours for Friday, October 22nd. Well, I see the year is wrong on how I set this up. My fingers were fast. It says 2012. Wow, 2021. I was doing this show in two separate installments, a Tuesday one that focused on job search, a Friday one that focused on hiring more effectively, management leadership, resolving different workplace issues, and other things like that. And I decided I'm just going to go back to the one size fits all. I'm going to cover everything on each show so that in this way you're not waiting for a long time. Now, if you're in a place where you have access to chat, you can send a message to me through chat, and I'll try and get to your question today. If not, it'll be no later than Tuesday. And let me just see, where do we have that? There we go. I just want to put that message in the chat. And I'll simply say, to me, job hunting doesn't have to be hard, difficult, painful, or take as long as it does. There's just a different skill set to finding a job than doing a job. In addition, hiring, most of you are amateurs. You have very little training, if any, that's going to allow you to avoid many of the mistakes that I've seen hiring managers make for so many years. So rather than be in a situation where you're making mistakes that prove costly, I just believe, let me support you. I coach people in job search, hiring, management, leadership, and dealing with different workplace issues. So if you have a question for me, you can put it into chat. Of course, you can reach out to me for coaching. You can do that through my website, which is thebiggamehunter.us. And there's a button there that will allow you to schedule a free discovery call or schedule time for coaching. Frankly, I'd love to help you. Now, I've got a number of questions here, and let me just get them on my screen. Bear with me. Okay. Oh, actually, I want to start off with something from the Federal Reserve. They issue a blue book that talks about their view of the economy, and their perception of the labor market is interesting. Let me just read this section. It's a paragraph in length that has 5 or 6 sentences. Employment increased at a modest to moderate rate in recent weeks as demand for workers was high, but labor growth was dampened by a low supply of workers. Transportation and technology firms saw a particularly low labor supply, while many retail, hospitality, and manufacturing firms cut hours or production because they didn't have enough workers. Firms reported high turnover as workers left for other jobs or retired. Child care issues and vaccine mandates were widely cited as contributing to the problem, along with COVID-related absences. Many firms offered increased training to expand the candidate pool. In some cases, firms increased automation to help offset labor shortages. The majority of districts, remember the Federal Reserve is set up with districts, reported robust wage growth. Firms reported increasing starting wages to attract talent and increasing wages for existing workers to retain them. Many also offered signing and retention bonuses, flexible work schedules, or increased vacation time to incentivize workers to remain in their positions. Folks, the labor market is uncertain right now. Firms are scrambling, and I think that's natural up to a point, but mandates and COVID are contributing problems here. People are out of the habit of having childcare available to them. And that's for particularly young children. I know, for example, the guy who mows our lawn was talking with my wife yesterday, and he was talking about the issues that he and his wife were having with their young children because school is complicated. The younger ones, like pre-K, doing it online, they think it's like television. They can walk away at a particular time and move on. So I think it's interesting, and I'll just simply say, folks, we live in complicated times, and if you have any concern about your current employer and their survivability during these times, make a move now because firms are desperate. Let's start going to questions. And let me get those on my screen. How important is education when it comes to getting a job? Well, it depends on what kind of work you're looking for. But I will say that the way things are right now, firms are looking at college degrees as being important, even if you're going to be a barista. Why that's important, I have no idea. But it's harder for you to get a decent paying job. I'm trying to talk about jobs that are not hourly wage, but ones with benefits, ones with vacation policy. It's hard to get one without a 4-year degree. At a minimum, a 2-year for some of them, but you got to start working at getting a degree. Now, whether that's useful in the work, that's a different story. But it's one of the criteria that employers are using to standardize, or I should say categorize people as being worthwhile talking to or not. I know my son has started to recognize that. He graduated high school and fled to New York at that time for culinary school. And when he graduated, it was COVID times, decided not to pursue that. There was no way to pursue it. There was no restaurant jobs in New York at that point. And now that COVID is on the back nine for so many organizations, he started to think of going back to school and working in a restaurant and making his money that way. So if you have a choice, get a degree. Find the easiest program that you can and just get the degree. It's not, if you're at this stage asking the question, it's not like you're getting into Stanford, the University of Chicago, Penn, Cornell, any of the Ivies, Harvard. It's not like you're going there. You're going to a local school. Find a good one that has an easy program that is well regarded in your area. That's going to be enough. Okay. Next question. Why do managers tend to command and coerce rather than coach and collaborate? Well, some conduct themselves that way. And I'll simply say that they do it because they're afraid. They don't know what they're doing. They may have been the best person doing the job that you're doing now. And they got promoted into manager roles, and their responsibility is to get stuff done. When stuff isn't getting done, their boss is telling them, you got to get this stuff done. What are you doing? And they become fearful. And then they kick the problem to you and are pressing you to do stuff. So they may not also have the tools to know how to collaborate and coach. Coaching is a skill. It takes time to develop. And thus, managers focus on the delivery of stuff, doing stuff, rather than the inspirational quality that's going to encourage people to want to do stuff. Statistics bear that out. Employee engagement in the United States, which is the highest in the world, is at 32%, which is where it's been for years. Translated, 68% of all employees are disengaged or they're actively subverting what your firm is trying to do. So recognize that your managers are getting pressure from above them, and thus they're pressuring you. Next question. By the way, if you have a question, put it into chat. I'd be happy to answer it. This is the Jeff Bezos quote. I'd rather interview 50 people and not hire anyone than hire the wrong person. What do you make of this statement that's attributed to Jeff Bezos? So the statement is a famous one in that he basically says, a bad hire is expensive. And the result winds up being that, I was messaging with the service that I use for this before the show, and I told them I was done, I was going live, and lo and behold, they messaged me again. Sorry. So what it basically means is that a bad hire is expensive. They require your attention to try and fix them. Most of the time, they're not fixable. This is who they are. They don't do good work. And thus, you'd rather spend time ruling people out than making the mistake of the wrong hire. And I get it, because I know I've made bad hires at different times in my life. And they are expensive. You worry, you strategize with people about how to get this person to do their job. And they're not doing their job. And that you're pushing them takes you away from what you think your responsibilities are. It's a time waster to get the wrong person on board. That's what it means. Next question. As a manager, what will you do to avoid barriers in decision making? Well, barriers in decision making are interesting because, frankly, what sort of barriers are we talking about? Are we talking about institutional barriers that get in your way? Are you talking about fear that's getting in your way of making a decision? What sort of barriers are we talking about? And I don't know. So it's difficult for me to answer this question. So I'm going to speak in generalities. What happens with most people who are making a decision? The fear of being wrong outweighs the desire to be right. It is much more painful to be wrong than anything. So firms, people avoid making choices to avoid ever being wrong. And yes, they wind up doing the wrong thing by doing that. But that's a different conversation. What they need to do is make a choice. You can always course correct while you're taking action. Make the decision, move ahead. If you want help with that, reach out to me. Again, thebiggamehunter.us, and there's a button there that'll talk about schedule, and you can get onto my calendar. I'll charge you for support with that, but I can help you make some decisions and walk you through a process where we can collaborate on that. Yes. I've been offered a contract via recruiter, but I'm going in via an umbrella company. Is this legitimate? Yes. Yeah. What normally happens, sometimes what happens in cases like this is there's a master service provider and, in effect, the subcontractor. The recruiter is the subcontractor. There is a master service provider that is handling the relationship with the end client. The MSP pays the recruiting firm, who in turn pays you. There's a layer there, and that's the recruiting firm. The umbrella firm actually has the contract with the company or the government agency, because this happens many times in the government. Thus, is it legitimate? Probably. And thus, you just want to ask the recruiter that you're working with, I see you're going through another firm. How long have you worked with them before? And how long was this assignment? Because I just want to know. And if they say, there's nothing to worry about, that basically tells you there's something to worry about. Sometimes these contracts with the umbrella firm can be for 2 months, and you're thinking you've got a full-time job or a long-term contract. You might ask them for what it is they have with their client so that you know what you're stepping into. But is it legitimate? In 99% of the times, it is. Why do some people gatekeep knowledge and or advice? Well, sometimes you think they're gatekeeping knowledge or advice, and they really aren't. What they are is someone who knows a lot of stuff, has institutional knowledge, and it's never been codified because they're too busy. So why does that happen? Well, yeah, there's sometimes the person who has job security because they have that institutional knowledge or knowledge of how that system works or whatever it is that scenario is in where you're questioning them. Thus, from their standpoint, they think they've got employment security. From your standpoint, you're wondering, gee, why do I always have to talk to this person? And thus, you want to encourage them to trust you and to open up to you. So this way you don't always have to go back to them and get that knowledge that you tend to need. Okay, next question. Do recruiters sometimes pull back the offer immediately after a software engineering candidate, or any candidate for that matter, tries to negotiate even a small increase over what was offered, especially when they know the candidate does not have any other offers and is very interested in the job? The answer is yes. Because understand, I'm going to work with third-party recruiters first and then corporate. Actually, it's the same thing, but there's more stress out of the third-party recruiter than the corporate. Corporate recruiter doesn't care because they've got a fallback person. They prefer to be you, but they don't want any headaches. For a third-party recruiter, you are their income, you are their commission, and they want to close the deal. So rather than risk losing the offer by going back to their client, they're basically going to say, hey, look, if you don't want to take it, I've got someone else who'd be very happy to do it. Wait, because you've got nothing else going on. If you have any sort of financial staying power, what you should do when this game is played is, do you want me to call the company and ask them, or do you want to play the game of withdrawing the offer? You have no authority to withdraw the offer. Only the employer could do that. Well, I'm going to tell them. I'm going to call them. And I'm going to simply say, I had a question about compensation, whether it could be improved a little bit. And what immediately happened is this recruiter, Rona or Ronnie recruiter, withdrew the offer from me, all because I asked the question. So I'm interested in this job. I'd appreciate it if you could increase it by another few $1,000s, another few $100s, whatever it is, and then I'm prepared to accept. Recruiters pull this game much too often, and thus you wind up being in a situation where you're scared of losing the job. Just, when they make that threat, basically say, I'm going to just call the company and tell them what you did. I want to accept this job, but I also want to accept it for a few $1,000s more. So your choice. I'm calling them next. Why would tech companies prefer to hire an H-1B employee from India as compared to a qualified professional within the U.S. or a U.S. citizen? Well, there's firms may question whether or not they have a qualified professional in the U.S. or a U.S. citizen. And you're going to go, what? There are lots of qualified people. But there aren't. Not in that particular geography. And in terms of a qualified professional within the U.S., I'm going to work with the assumption that they mean someone with a visa that requires a transfer. In both cases, in the one with the H-1B from India, as opposed to the qualified professional within the USA or a U.S. citizen, they may be able to reduce their costs. For the H-1B person in the U.S., it's still going to cost them money to transfer, just like it would with the person from India. Tech companies don't always prefer that person from overseas. All they want is a person who's qualified at a reasonable price to do this work. And we're not necessarily talking about the big, well-known firms. We're talking about any sort of a tech company and asking this question. They do it because it's less expensive than doing it in the U.S. Even if they're bringing this person over and it's costing them the cost of the visa, well, frankly, it's an expense that isn't really significant to them. So why do they do it? It's less expensive. They can get the person on board. They haven't become Americanized yet, meaning they don't talk back. They just do their job. And that part about they don't talk back, that's a part of it too, because Americans do talk back. They give managers a rough time. Individuals who are being relocated to the U.S., hey, they are just thankful and appreciative, with the result being no lip, no problems. Let's see now. Why would employers not give people with no work experience a chance to learn to do the job they are applying for? Because you don't know how to do the job you're applying for. That's really what it comes down to. You don't know how to do it, and they need someone to know how to do it. Remember, this manager is being judged on their ability to deliver results. Now, if you remember one of the questions I started off with, about command and coercion rather than coach and collaborate, this is a part of it. You don't know how to do it. They need to get results. You're not capable of giving them a result. They don't want to train. That's more work on their part because you don't know. They just want to hire someone who's the solution to their problem, not take on another problem. So from their standpoint, it's easier. It is easier to do it this way rather than try and train someone. After all, what does the training imply? It implies that they are doing that job to help get you into production. And then they may discover you're going to leave or you're not a hard worker, and that affects them too. So at least if they hire someone who has the experience doing the job and can do something similar for them, they don't have to worry about training. So that's why it happens. Do people in leadership always have to use management jargon? Well, when I hear the term management jargon, I think in terms of they're talking to one another. So you call it jargon in a dismissive way, learn their language. You have to talk to them. You have to understand how they think in order to move up and get the results for them that will allow you to command their attention. So focus on learning how to speak their language so that in this way, even though you're staff and not management, you get it. You understand their perspective and can move on from there. What are some of the best ways a manager can respond when an employee intends to resign? I think the best way to respond is to start off with congratulations. I'm sorry we couldn't hold you. You were an important person on this team. And the fact that you're going elsewhere, I consider a loss for us. Notice what I'm doing. I'm loving them up. I'm causing them to think, I love their work. They matter to me. Because some managers haven't done that up until the point of the resignation. And then from there, you continue by saying, why did you decide to leave? What prompted you to be receptive to the idea of leaving? What didn't we give you? Well, it was more money. It was a better opportunity. What made it a better opportunity? I'm just curious. You're happy going there. I'm not going to talk against the firm that you're joining. I want to learn from me how I could have done better. Well, it's always about money when they emphasize, the job. Job got boring. I was doing the same thing for the last 5 years. And they offered me $20,000 more than I was making here, so I'm leaving. It's really about the money. I was happy working where I am. And then this great opportunity landed in my lap. What made it a great opportunity? And why did you take the call or respond to the email that caused you to get the interview? That's really what you want to find out. So the first thing is to honor their decision to leave rather than begging them to stay, because begging them to stay is a weak position for you. Your leadership has been rejected, and thus you want to acknowledge them, wish them well, love them on their way up the door, ask them to start doing knowledge transfer to someone on your staff, so that they're aware that the person who's staying knows what it is that you do and how you do it, because the probability is you're not getting someone on board in 2 weeks that they can do the knowledge transfer with. So you want to make sure that that has been done. It could be to you, but you already have stuff on your plate. You've got to hire a replacement. And you want to make sure that you get that information so that in this way there's no gap that's going to cause problems in the project, in your group, in the team, what have you. So, quick look, no questions. I'm Jeff Altman. Hope you found today's show helpful. I'll be back Tuesday at a new time, 9:15, with the next installment of Career Coach Office Hours. Tuesday at 9:15, Fridays at 9. I'm here with advice that's going to help you with your job search, hiring more effectively, management, leadership, resolving workplace issues. If you have a question for me, you can email it to me in advance at thebiggamehunter@gmail.com. In the subject line, put the term office hours. This way I know what it's about. I can separate out the question, come to it for the show, get it solved for you. Okay? Connect with me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/IN/the-big-game-hunter. Imagine that you saw this. I like knowing I'm helping some folks. Once we're connected, you can schedule, you'll have access to a much bigger network because my network tends to be larger than most people's. And schedule time for a free discovery call or schedule time for coaching at thebiggamehunter.us. Have a terrific day, and most importantly, be great.